Take your hands off my daughter! There is the proof. Now everyone can see what kind of people we allowed in here.
Mom, I didn't take it.
I know, baby. Look only at me.
10-year. Old Zuri Whitfield's backpack on the marble sidewalk while third neighbor watched. And when a silver bracelet rolled beneath a parked Bentley, the president of Bellhaven Crest pointed at the child and said, "There. Now everyone can see what kind of people we let into this neighborhood." Zuri froze. Her science notebook landed in a puddle left by the landscaper. Colored pencils scattered across the pavement. A small framed photograph of her late grandpa cracked against the curb. Standing beside her daughter, Sloane Whitfield felt something cold settle behind her ribs. She did not raise her voice. She did not rush toward Patrice Ellison, the woman wearing a white designer suit and a smile sharpened by years of getting away with cruelty. Instead, Sloane crouched beside Zuri. "Look at me, baby." Zuri's wide brown eyes were filling with tears. "I didn't take it," she whispered. "I know. It was in my bag when I left home." "I know that too." Sloane gathered the child's notebooks one by one, moving slowly enough to hide the anger trembling through her hands. Around them, residents stood beneath the white columns of the Bellhaven Crest clubhouse. Some looked uncomfortable. Others held their phones at chest level, recording. A few whispered with the eager excitement of people who believed another family's humiliation counted as entertainment. Patrice stepped closer. 6, tall and elegant with honey. Brown skin, a sculpted bob, and the controlled posture of a woman who treated every sidewalk like a stage. As president of the Owners Association, owner of Ellison Premier Realty, and unofficial ruler of Bellhaven Crest, she had spent 6 years deciding which families belonged and which families should be made to feel temporary. The bracelet belonged to her 14-year daughter, Brielle. That was what Patrice claimed. It disappeared during the youth committee meeting. Patrice said, "Your daughter was the only child who left early." Zuri looked up. "I left because Brielle poured juice on my project." Brielle stood near the club doors, with her arms folded. She had the same polished appearance as her mother, but none of her control. Her face twitched at Zuri's words. "That is a lie," Brielle said. Zuri shook her head. "You said my solar house looked cheap." A few children nearby glanced at one another. Patrice ignored them. "The evidence is under that car," she said. "Bellhaven has rules, Ms. Whitfield. We can't overlook theft because the accused happens to be a child." Sloane rose. She was 39, with deep brown skin, soft black locks, twisted into low knot, and a quiet, steady gaze that often caused impatient people to overestimate her. She wore a navy blouse, tailored slacks, and flat leather shoes. Nothing about her clothing displayed wealth. Her 12-year-old gray station wagon was parked beside a line of luxury SUVs. Patrice had made sure everyone noticed that car the week Sloane moved in. "Did you search every child's backpack?" Sloane asked. Patrice's expression tightened. "We had no reason to." "You had no reason to search my daughters." "We had a witness." "Who?" Patrice tilted her chin toward Brielle. Sloane looked at the teenager. "You saw Zuri take the bracelet." Brielle glanced at her mother before answering. "I saw her near my purse." "That was not my question." Brielle's mouth opened, then closed. Patrice stepped between them. "Do not interrogate my child." "But you allowed a grown man to empty mine's belongings onto the street." The security guard, Desmond Pike, shifted his weight. He was broad-shouldered, with a shaved head and a uniform that seemed one size too small around his neck. Patrice recently convinced the Hoko A board to hire his private security company, Pike Protect Services, under a 3-year contract. He grabbed Zuri by the wrist at the clubhouse entrance. Sloane had seen it from across the parking lot. She would remember the exact position of his fingers for a long time. Desmond cleared his throat. Mrs. Ellison authorized the search. She's not law enforcement, Sloane said. She is president. That gives her authority over landscape schedules and parking permits. It does not give her authority over my daughter's body. A murmur moved through the crowd. Patrice's smile disappeared. You arrived here 6 weeks ago, she said. You purchased the smallest house on Hawthorne Lane through some obscure trust. You refuse to provide employment verification. You ignore social invitations. Your daughter attends public school instead of Langston Academy, and now valuable property has gone missing. Sloane's gaze did not shift. What exactly are you accusing me of? Patrice lowered her voice, but not enough to keep the neighbors from hearing. I am saying people sometimes stretch beyond their means to enter places where they do not belong. Zuri's face crumpled. That hurt Sloane more than the accusation. She stepped closer until only a few feet separated her from Patrice. My daughter will receive a written apology from you, your daughter and Mr. Pike. Patrice gave a short laugh. You are in no position to make demands. You should be very careful when deciding what position another person is in. Patrice looked around at her audience, reassured by their attention. Bellhaven Crest protects its standards. The board will meet tomorrow to discuss sanctions against your household. Until then, Zuri is prohibited from entering the clubhouse or attending youth activities. You can't punish her before an investigation. The bracelet was found in her bag. It was found after her bag spent 12 minutes unattended in a room controlled by your daughter and your security contractor. Desmond's eyes flickered. It lasted less than a second. Sloane noticed. Patrice did not. You should leave, Patrice said. Sloane reached beneath the Bentley and retrieved the bracelet with a clean handkerchief from her purse. She did not touch it with her bare hands. Patrice watched her. What are you doing? Preserving what you called evidence. You can't take that. Sloane placed it inside the clear plastic sleeve that had held Zuri's science assignment. I am return it to you in front of witnesses. She held it. Ow. Patrice stared at the plastic sleeve, then reluctantly accepted it. Sloane turned toward the crowd. If anyone recorded the search, please do not delete the video. Several phones lowered. Then she took Zuri's hand. They walked away with the child's belongings pressed against Sloane's chest. Behind them, Patrice called out, The board meeting is at 7 tomorrow. You will be expected to attend. Sloane did not turn around. I know exactly when it starts. Inside their home, Zuri sat at the kitchen island while Sloane cleaned a scrape on her wrist. The house was elegant but restrained, with warm oak floors, cream walls, and wide windows overlooking a small garden. It was one of the original homes in Bellhaven Crest, built before newer residents began tearing down mature trees to construct larger houses with indoor theaters and car garages. Zuri looked toward the framed photographs Sloane had placed beside the sink. The glass was broken across her grandmother's smiling face. Why did you buy a house here? She asked. Sloane paused. Because your grandmother loved this street. But Gram never lived here. She wanted to. Zuri looked confused. Sloane wrapped a bandage around her wrist. Years earlier, before Bellhaven Crest became one of the most expensive black-owned residential developments in North Carolina, Sloane's mother, Odessa Whitfield, had worked as an architectural drafter for the original developer. Odessa had helped design the community garden, the walking paths, and the first clubhouse. She had imagined Bellhaven as a place where successful black families could live without having to prove them, said every. But when the project ran in financial trouble, Odessa's name disappeared from the plan. Her final invoice went unpaid. She was never able to purchase the modest house she loved on Hawthorne Lane. Sloane had bought that house 3 months after Odessa died. She had told no one why. "Are they going to make us leave?" Zuri asked. "No." Mrs. Ellison said the Howa Kante houses. Sloane studied her daughter. "Who told you that?" "Brielle, she said they took Mr. Carter's house after his wife got sick. She said her mom can make anybody leave." Mr. Carter had once owned a corner property near the lake, according to public records. The Howo had filed liens against him for unpaid assessments and legal fees. The home later sold through Ellison Premier Realty for far below its current market value. Sloane had noticed that transactions before moving in. Now it felt less like an unfortunate foreclosure and more like a pattern. "No one is taking this house," Sloane said. "How do you know?" "Because fear works best when people think they are alone." Zuri looked down at the bandage. "I was scared." "You were surrounded by adults who should have protected you. Being scared does not mean you were weak." "I want to yell." "So did I." "Why didn't you?" Sloane smiled faintly. "Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let a dishonest person keep talking." Her phone vibrated on the counter. A mess appeared from Malik Rowan. "I saw the video. Call me now." Sloane walked into her study and closed the door. Malik answered before the first ring ended. "You told me you wanted privacy," he said. "You did not tell me you planned to let an Ho president put her hands on your child." "She did not touch Zuri. Her security guard did." "That is not better." Malik was 42, a former federal prosecutor who now served as chief legal counsel for Sloane's holding company. He had a deliberate voice and an almost supernatural ability to sound calm while preparing to destroy someone's legal defense. "Do we have the original video?" Sloane asked. "3 versions. One resident streamed part of it publicly before deleting it. Our digital team preserved the footage. Find every angle. Already happening. And look into Pike Protect Services. We began the moment I saw him grab Zuri." Sloane glanced through the glass doors toward the kitchen. "There is more. I think the bracelet was planted." "What makes you think that?" "Desmond reacted when I mentioned the backpack being unattended." "That is not proof." "But the clubhouse used an Asterlink access system." Malik went quiet. Asterlink was developed by one of Sloane's companies. Most residents knew Sloane Whitfield as a private business consultant. Very few, she was the founder and controlling shareholder of Whitfield Arcadia Group, a technology and infrastructure empire valued at more than $11 billion. Her business managed data systems for hospitals, airports, banks, and residential developments across the country. Bellhaven Crest's cameras, vehicle gates, smart locks, and emergency network all operated on technology owned by Sloane. She had never mentioned that to Patrice. "Can we access the footage?" Malik asked. "Not without authorization from the property owner or a court order. I will not abuse the system." "Then we obtain it legally." Quietly, Malik exhaled. "You are still trying to protect your anonymity." "I am trying to understand the size of the problem. Your daughter was publicly accused of theft. And if Patrice is stealing from the entire community, exposing mice too, soon will warn her." Malik was silent for a moment. "You think the foreclosure records are connected?" "Yes. I will bring in a forensic accountant. Use someone outside the group." Sloane. "She watches people who arrive in expensive cars. Sends someone she will overlook." Malik almost laughed. "You moved into neighborhood controlled by a woman who measures human value by car models. And I arrived in a station wagon." That poor car has never done anything to deserve this respect. Despite hers, Sloane smiled. Tomorrow's board meeting may give us more. I will have counsel present. No. You cannot be serious. I want them comfortable. They assaulted your child. And Carla becomes when they think the victim has no power. The next evening, the Bellhaven Crest board convened inside a wood-paneled meeting room overlooking the lake. Patrice sat at the center of a long table, with 4 board members beside her. Desmond stood near the doors. Sloane entered alone. She wore a simple gray dress and carried a thin folder. Several residents had gathered behind rows of chairs, including parents from the youth committee. Brielle sat near her mother, scrolling on her phone. Patrice glanced at Sloane's folder. Do you have legal representation? I did not realize landscaping volunteers required attorneys. This a disciplinary hearing. Then where are the procedures governing evidence, witnessing, and appeals? Patrice's lips tinned. Board member Franklin Boone leaned toward his microphone. He was a retired banker in his 60s, known for agreeing with whoever seemed most powerful. Ms. Whitfield, we would prefer to resolve this without hostility. Then begin by acknowledging that a child was searched without consent. Patrice tapped her pen. We are here to discuss your household's conduct. She pushed a packet across the table. It contained a notice of violations. Unauthorized exterior modifications. Failure to submit employment verification. Improper vehicle maintenance. Disruptive conduct at a community event. Suspected theft by a household member. Sloane, read each page. The exterior modification referred to a small wheelchair ramp she had installed temporarily for her mother during Odessa's final weeks. The employment violation cited a rule that did not exist in the published covenants. The vehicle complaint concerned faded paint on the roof of her station wagon. The disruptive conduct consisted of Sloane objecting while her daughter was searched. The total fines came to $18,600. Sloane looked up. This was prepared before the bracelet was allegedly found. Patrice's pen stopped moving. At the bottom of the first page, the document metadata showed a creation date from 3 days earlier. Franklin leaned over to examine it. Patrice covered the corner with her hand. That is an administrative template. With my name, address, and the exact allegation. We anticipate possible disciplinary action after your daughter's behavior at prior youth meetings. Sloane turned to the board. Did each of you review these charges? The woman seated farthest from Patrice avoided eye contact. Her name was Noreen Vance, a pediatric dentist who had recently joined the board. Franklin cleared his throat. Patrice handles ferment. So none of you investigated. We trust the president's office. That is not an answer. Patrice leaned forward. You mistaken meeting for a negotiation. The board is imposing the fines. If they are not paid within 30 days, the association will place a lien on your property. A few residents gasped. Sloane closed the packet. And if I refuse? Then the process continues. Toward foreclosure. Patrice smiled without warmth. That would be your decision. From the audience, an elder man spoke. That is what you told Curtis Carter. Patrice's head snapped toward him. The speaker was Ezekiel Price, a 73-year-old widower who lived near the East Gate. He had silver hair, a heavy cane, and the watchful expression of someone who remembered every insult ever delivered politely. This matter does not concern Mr. Carter, Patrice said. It concerns all of us if you are using fines to push people out. Desmond moved toward Ezekiel. Sloane stood. Do not touch him. The command came out sharper than anything she had said all evening. Desmond stopped. For the first time, Patrice seemed uncertain. Only briefly. Then she recovered. The fine stands, she said, and until payment is made, your family's access to all common facilities is suspended. That includes the community garden, Sloane asked. Yes. My mother's memorial tree is there. That is not the association's concern. Zuri had planted that magnolia with Odessa 2 weeks before her grandmother died. Sloane's face remained still, but something inside her hardened. Patrice mistook her silence for defeat. Bellhaven Crest is not obligated to accommodate every emotional attachment, she continued. This community operates according to standards. Ezekiel struck his cane against the floor. Odessa Whitfield drew half the first plans for this place. Several older residents turned towards Sloane. Patrice blinked. Sloane looked at Ezekiel. He gave her a quiet nod. He had recognized her name. Patrice glanced between them. That has no relevance. It has more relevance than your bracelet, Ezekiel said. The meeting ended with the board voting 4-1 in favor of the fines. Noreen Vance cast the only opposing vote. As resident filed out, she approached Sloane near the lake terrace. I am sorry, Noreen said. I should have spoken sooner. Why didn't you? Noreen looked back towards the meeting room. Because Patrice has files on everyone, private, debts, divorces, medical issues. She knows who is vulnerable. How? I don't know. Does the board receive complete financial statements? We receive summaries. Prepared by whom? Patrice and the management company. Which management company? Crestline Residential Partners. Sloane recognized the name. Crestline was a small firm with no public office and one registered director. That director was Patrice's younger brother. Has anyone questioned the relationship? Sloane asked. Noreen gave a bitter laugh. Franklin says Patrice works harder than everyone else, so we should be grateful. Sloane handed her a card. It listed only a private phone number. If you have documents, preserve them. Do not send anything from an HOO account. Noreen looked at the card. Are you an attorney? No. Then what do you do? Sloane glanced through the windows at Patrice, who was laughing with Desmond. I solve expensive problems. Over the following 2 weeks, Patrice intensified the pressure. A towing company removed Sloane's station wagon from her own driveway, claiming its registration sticker was obscured. Anonymous complaints were submitted to Zuri School, alleging that Sloane left her child unattended at night. A social media account posted photographs of their house with captions suggesting the property had been purchased through fraudulent financing. Brielle circulated an edited video showing Zuri beside the Bentley, cutting out the moment Desmond emptied her backpack. At school, Chill began calling Zuri Bracelet Girl. Zuri climbed into a reach-share cart instead of waiting at the pickup area because she could not bear another group whispering behind her. Sloane found her at a bookstore 20 minutes later, sitting between 2 shelves with her knees pulled to her chest. I wasn't run away, Zuri said. I know. I just wanted people to stop looking at me. Sloane sat on the carpet beside her. They are looking because someone gave them a story that was easy to believe. Why is it easy? The question struck deeper than Zuri understood. Sloane took her hand. Because some people feel safer when they can put everyone into a box. Rich, poor, honest, dangerous, important, invisible. What box did they put us in? The one they thought could not fight back. Zuri rested her head against Sloane's shoulder. Are we going to fight? Yes. When? Soon. That evening, Malik arrived at the house with forensic accountant Camille Brooks and a banker's box filled with documents. Camille was 51, petite, sharp, eyed and so soft-spoken that people often leaned closer before reeling she was describe evidence that could send them to prison. She placed a chart on Sloane's dining table. The HOA almost $4 million in special assessments over 5 years, Camille said. At least $1.3 million was transferred through vendors connected to Patrice Ellison. Services provided, Sloane asked. Mostly fabricated security consulting, landscape remediation, legal research, resident screening. Malik opened another folder. Pike Protective Services billed the association for 40 guards. State records show 11 licensed employees. And the foreclosures? 7 households received excessive fines, Camille said. 4 homes were sold through Ellison Premier Realty. 2 were purchased by shell companies controlled by Patrice's relatives. The final property was acquired by Crestline Residential Partners. Sloane studied the names. Curtis Carter, Miriam Fields. The Dawson family. People who had lost spouses, jobs, or health. Patrice had not targeted the poorest residents. She had targeted the most vulnerable. Can we prove she accessed private financial information? Sloane asked. Malik nodded. Line resident portal copied loan documents, metal hardship applications, and payment records into a private database. Patrice used that information to identify households least able to contest lines. Sloane's voice went quiet. And the bracelet. Malik slid a tablet toward her. Noreen had secured a board resolution authorizing independent review of clubhouse security records. The resolution had passed after Ezekiel persuaded 2 additional board members to support it. The video showed Brielle entering the youth activity room after Zuri had gone outside. Desmond stood in the doorway. Brielle took the bracelet from her own pocket. She hesitated. Then, Desmond looked down the hall, nodded, and held Zuri's backpack open. Brielle dropped the bracelet inside. Sloane watched the clip twice. On the third viewing, she focused on Desmond's hand gripping the backpack. Malik watched her face. We can go to the police tonight. Not yet. Sloane. How many residents have been harmed? Directly, at least 15. Indirectly, probably the entire association. Then this cannot end with one bracelet. Camille folded her hands. There is another issue. She pulled out a copy of a loan agreement. Bellhaven Crest's original development company had borrowed heavily to expand the neighborhood. After several defaults, the debt was sold. 3 months earlier, Sloane's private investment trust had acquired it. Through that debt, she trolled the land beneath the unfinished luxury section, the clubhouse mortgage, and several commercial parcels around Bellhaven. Patrice had no idea. The association is holding its annual legacy gala next Friday, Camille said. They plan to announce a $12 million expansion. Funded how? Sloane asked. A new loan secured by the clubhouse and reserve accounts. Malik shook his head. They can't close without consent from the senior lien holder. Which is Sloane, Camille said. Sloane looked through the dining room window toward the lights surround the cal. The clubhouse. Patrice believed the gala would establish her as the woman who transformed Bellhaven Crest into the most exclusive black residential community in the region. Oh. She had invited reporters, investors, elected officials, and hundreds of guests. She planned to unveil a new wing, named the Ellison Heritage Pavilion. Sloane closed the folder. Let her hold the gala. Malik studied her. What exactly you planning? To let Patrice present her vision. That sounds dangerously calm. He has spent weeks teaching my daughter that cruel becomes truth when enough people repeat it. Sloane looked at the frozen image of Brielle, dropping the bracelet into Zuri's bag. I am going to teach Patrice the difference between controlling a room and owning the facts inside it. The night of the Legacy Gala, Bellhaven Crest glowed beneath hundreds of gold lights. Luxury cars curved around the fountain. A string quartet played beneath the clubhouse staircase. Guests in tuxedos and evening gowns posed before a wall printed with Patrice's name and the slogan preserving excellence for the next generation. Sloane arrived with Zuri and Ezekiel Price. Zuri wore a deep green dress, and small gold braids gathered at the back of her head. She held Sloane's hand tightly. Sloane wore a black floor-length gown with clean lines and no visible designer label. Her locks fell over one shoulder. At her throat was Odessa's restored pendant, a simple piece of amber set in gold. The station wagon had been returned from the towing company. Sloane drove it to the gala. The valet stared when she handed him the keys. Patrice intercepted them before they reached the ballroom. For a moment her eyes moved over Sloane's dress with unwilling surprise. Then she noticed Zuri. "This a private event," Patrice said. "We are residents. Your privileges are suspended." Ezekiel leaned on his cane. "Then you should not have accepted my $10,000 table sponsorship." Patrice forced a smile. "Mr. Price, you are welcome, your guests are not." Ezekiel took the printed invitation from his pocket. "It says I may bring two." Patrice turned toward Desmond, who was stationed near the doors. Sloane Whitfield and her daughter from the property. Guests began watching. Zuri's fingers tightened around Sloane's. Desmond approached, but he did not touch them. Something in Sloane's expression stopped him. "I would reconsider," she said. Patrice softly. "Still pretending you have leverage?" "No, I am giving you one final opportunity to avoid humiliate yourself in front of your guests." Patrice's face changed. She stepped close enough that only Sloane could hear her next words. "Your daughter stole from mine. You failed to pay your fines. Your car was nearly repossessed. And you still walk into my gala acting as if you belong beside people who built something." Sloane held her gaze. "My mother helped build this place. Your mother drew pictures. She drew the community you turned into a hunting ground." Patrice's nostrils flared. Then she stepped back. "Remove them." Before Desmond could move, Noreen Vance appeared beside the ballroom doors. "They are my guests too." Patrice looked around. Noreen wore a red gown and carried a white envelope. Behind her stood Franklin Boone and two other board members. None looked at Patrice. "What is this?" Patrice asked. "A special board session," Noreen said, "scheduled to begin after your presentation." Patrice's eyes narrowed. "You do not have authority. We have 3 directors requesting it. You need notice." "Notice was delivered to your registered address yesterday." Patrice turned to Franklin. He swallowed. "We should let them enter." For the first time that evening, Patrice looked afraid. Only for a second. Then applause erupted from inside the ballroom as the master of ceremonies announced her name. The moment restored her. She smiled. "Fine," she said. "Let them watch." The ballroom was filled with nearly 400 people. At the center stood a scale model of the proposed Ellison Heritage Pavilion, complete with a private, spa, wine lounge, and executive meeting suites. Large screens displayed images of Bellhaven families. None showed Curtis Carter, the Dawsons, or any household that had lost a home. Patrice took the stage beneath a gold spotlight. She spoke about legacy, discipline, and protecting the value of Black achievement. She spoke about maintaining standards. She spoke about children inheriting a community built by courageous visionaries. Zuri sat beside Sloane listening. "That doesn't sound like her," she whispered. "It is the version of her she sells," Sloane replied. Patrice introduced Brielle as the future of Bellhaven Crest. The teenager walked on the stage wearing a silver dress, and the bracelet that had supposedly been stolen. The sight of it caused Zuri to look away. Sloane placed a hand over her daughter's. Patrice concluded by announcing that the association had secured preliminary financing for the $12 million expansion. The ballroom erupted in applause. A banker was invited on the stage to present a ceremonial letter of commitment. Patrice lifted it for the cameras. Then the banker leaned toward her microphone. "There is one remaining condition," she said carefully. "Consent from the senior secured creditor." Patrice smiled. "That consent is expected." A voice said from the audience. "It is not." Heads turned. Sloane rose. She walked toward the stage while camera operator swung in her direction. Patrice stared down at her. "What are you doing?" "Attending the special board session." "This is not the time." "It exactly the time." Noreen joined Sloane near the stage and handed the master of ceremonies a signed resolution. "The board has authorized Ms. Whitfield to present evidence concerning association finances, resident safety, and the proposed loan." Patrice grabbed the resolution. "This invalid." Franklin stood from his table. "It has 3 signatures. You sign this." His face was pale. "I did not know about the vendor relationships." Patrice looked at the other directors. "You ungrateful cowards." The microphones carried her words across the ballroom. A ripple moved through the guests. Patrice realized too late that everyone had heard. Sloane climbed the steps. Desmond moved toward her. 2 state investigators entered through the side doors. He stopped. Malik Rowan followed them, carrying a leather case. Patrice's eyes moved from him to Sloane. "Who are you?" Sloane reached the podium. "My name is Sloane Odessa Whitfield. I am the founder and controlling owner of Whitfield Arcadia Group." The banker lowered her ceremonial letter. Several guests began murmuring. A business reporter near the front lifted her phone and started streaming. Sloane continued. "Through Arcadia Residential Holdings, I am also the senior secured creditor for the Bellhaven Crest development company, for mortgage and expansion par suras you plan to pledge tonight." Patrice stared at her. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. The scale model of the pavilion remained brightly lit between them. Sloane looked toward the banker. "The proposed loan does not have my consent." The banker stepped away from Patrice. Cameras flashed. Patrice's fingers tightened around the podium. "You bought the debt. My trust acquired it before I moved here. You deceived the board. I was not required to announce my private investments. You allowed us to believe you were." Patrice stopped herself. Sloane waited. "Say it," she said. Patrice's eyes darted toward the cameras. Sloane's voice stayed level. "You allowed yourself to believe I was poor, powerless, unconnected. You treated that assumption as permission." Patrice turned toward the audience. "This woman is retaliating because her daughter was caught stealing." Sloane glanced toward the screen operator. "Play the first 5. The gala photographs vanish. Security footage filled every screen. Brielle appeared in the youth activity room. The bracelet glinted between her fingers. Desmond held open Zuri's backpack. Gasps broke across the ballroom as Brielle dropped the bracelet inside. On stage, the teenager stumbled backward. Patrice spun toward her. "What did you do?" Brielle's face drained of color. "You told me she needed to be taught a lesson. I did not tell you to do that. You said Mr. Pike would handle it." Desmond began moving toward the nearest exit. One investigator stepped into his path. "Mr. Pike, where you are." Desmond's jaw tightened. Patrice pointed at him. "He arranged it. I knew nothing about the bracelet. Desmond gave a stunned laugh. You called me at 6 that morning. Do not lie. You said the girl embarrassed Brielle, and the mother needed a violation serious enough for a lien. Patrice's composure cracked. She grabbed his sleeve. You were paid to follow instructions, not repeat conversations. The microphones caught every word. Desmond looked at her hand, then at the investigators. I kept the messages. Patrice released him. Brielle began crying. Mom, you said nobody would believe her. Zuri sat motionless in the audience. Sloane looked at her daughter. The child was not smiling. Vindication did not erase what had happened, but her shoulders slowly straightened. Sloane returned her attention to the screens. Play the second file. A finance chart appeared. Camille Brooks stepped on the stage and explained the vendor payments, false and transfers from Hoa reserve funds. Figures were displayed beside corporate registrations, connecting Patrice, her brother and Desmond to the deceiving companies. On Crowers. Patrice backed away from the podium. This is confidential financial information. It belongs to the residents whose money you manage, Noreen said. Camille showed the foreclosure pattern. 7 households. Excessive fines. Leak fees multiplied without explanation. Properties sold through Patrice's brokerage or acquired by affiliated companies. Photographs of the displaced families appeared beside the transaction dates. Ezekiel lowered his head when Curtis Carter's face appeared. A woman near the back began sobbing. Sister had lost one of the homes. Patrice shook head rapidly. Every foreclosure followed the covenants. Malik opened his case. Not when notices were deliberately sent to incorrect addresses. Not when signatures were falsified. Not when payment agreements were hidden from the board. He displayed copies of altered records. Patrice's breathing became visible beneath the fitted fabric of her suit. This a setup? No, Sloane said. The setup was a bracelet in a child's backpack. Patrice looked at her with naked hatred. You think money makes you better than me? No. Then why you doing this? Because used access, information and fear to strip people of their dignity. You target families at the exact moment they were grieving, sick, or financially exposed. You taught your daughter that reputation matters more than truth. And when you believed my child had no one powerful standing by her, you chose to crush her in public. Sloane stepped away from the podium. I am not here because I am a billionaire. I am here because even if I had been everything you assumed, a struggling mother with an old car and no influential name, use, still would have been wrong. Applause began somewhere near the back. It spread unevenly, not celebratory but forceful. Patrice smiled as the people who once laughed beside her avoided her eyes. She turned to Franklin. Tell them the board approved everything. Franklin's face hardened. You said the vendors were independent. You signed the payments. Because you threatened to expose my son's bankrupts. Patrice stared at him. Then she turned to Noreen. You gave her the records? Noreen held her gaze. You used my husband's medical debt to keep me quiet. Patrice's voice rose. All of you benefited from what I built. You built a machine that fed on frightened people, Noreen said. Brielle tried to leave the stage. Zuri stood. Everyone nearby looked at her. She walked toward the steps slowly. Sloane's first instinct was to stop her, but she saw determination in her daughter's face. Zuri climbed on the stage and faced Brielle. Brielle wiped tears from her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. Zuri looked at the bracelet. Are you sorry because I was hurt, or because they saw you do it? Brielle's lips trembled. I didn't know. Zuri nodded. That's what you should figure out. She turned away. Patrice suddenly reached for Sloane's arm. You can't destroy my family over one mistake. Sloane looked down at Patrice's hand until she removed it. One mistake did not create shell companies, falsify records, steal reserve funds, and force 7 families from their homes. I can repay the money. With whose money? Patrice's face twisted. We can make an arrangement. You understand business. I understand this community. We could control it together. The offer stunned even Desmond. Sloane stared at her. Patrice lowered her voice, desperate now. People forget scandals. The expansion could still happen. Put your name on it. I will resign quietly. You are trying to annoy ownerships of something that was never yours. Patrice looked toward the investigators. What happened to Brielle if I am arrested? That depends on the choices made by the adults responsible for her. She needs me. So did every child whose home you took. Patrice's eyes filled, but the tears did not soften her face. They made her look furious. This neighborhood will turn against you, she said. They will call you cruel, vindictive, arrogant. Sloane glanced at the hundreds of witnesses. They already called me worse when they thought I had nothing. I survived that too. The lead investigator approached Patrice. Patrice Ellison, we have a warrant for your arrest on charges related to fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, and misappropriation of association funds. Patrice stepped backward. No. She looked toward Franklin. He did not move. Noreen's expression was steady. Desmond saw something. Desmond was already placing his hands behind his back as another investigator approached him. Patrice turned toward the ballroom exit. Officer blocked it. Her shoulders collapsed. For the first time since Sloane had met her, Patrice looked small. Not because she had lost wealth, because she had lost the ability to decide what everyone else was allowed to see. Officers escorted her from the stage. The crowd parted. Some guests lowered their phones. Others kept recording. Patrice's gaze found Sloane's one last time. There was no apology in it. Only disbelief that the person she had chose as prey had been standing above her entire operation. Brielle remained near the curtains, shaking. Sloane walked over. The teenager looked terrified. Are they taking my mother to jail? They are taking her to answer for what she did. Are you going to ruin us? Sloane studied her. No. Brielle's face tightened with confusion. Why not? Because justice is not the same as revenge against a child. Brielle began to cry harder. Sloane called Noreen over. Her aunt is waiting downstairs, Noreen said. I will take her. Before leaving, Brielle looked at Zuri. I really am sorry. Zuri did not forgive her. Not that night. She simply said, you should tell the truth before someone forces you to. The gala ended without music. By sunrise, it spread across social media. But the most shared clip was not Sloane revealing her wealth. It was her saying that Patrice would have been wrong, even if Sloane had been poor. News stations replayed that sentence for days. Within a week, Patrice was formally removed as Hautoa president. Desmond lost his security license. And Pike Protect Services was dissolved. Franklin Boone resigned from the board, and later cooperated with prosecutors. Crestline Residential Partners was placed into receivership. Patrice's brokerage license was suspended pending trial. Her properties were frozen to preserve funds for restitution. The criminal case took more than a year. Patrice eventually pleaded guilty to fraud, conspiracy, unlawful use of personal financial information, and falsifying association records. She received a prison sentence and was ordered to surrender assets acquired through the scheme. Desmond accepted a separate plea agreement after providing messages, recordings, and payment records. Brielle moved to Maryland to live with her aunt. Months later, she sent Zuri a handwritten letter. It did not ask for friendship. It did not blame Patrice. It simply described what she had done and admitted she had enjoyed the feeling of power until she saw what it cost someone else. Zuri kept the letter in a drawer. She answered it only once. She wrote, "Being honest after you get caught is the beginning, not the end." Sloane did not ask what else she wrote. Some lessons belonged to the person learning them. The Ho's stolen funds were partially recovered through the sale of Patrice assets. Whitfield Arcadia covered the remaining losses through a no-interest community restoration loan that could not be used to increase residents' assessments. Sloane insisted on one condition. Every dollar had to be audited publicly. The foreclosed families received settlements. Curtis Carter returned to Bellhaven Crest one warm Saturday morning, standing outside his old home with tears in his eyes. The current owners agreed to sell after learning how the property had been attained, and Sloane's Housing Foundation helped complete the transact without profit. Curtis touched the porch railing. "My wife picked this color," he said. Ezekiel stood beside him. "I told you this place would have to answer 1J. Curtis looked at Sloane. "You brought my house back?" "No," she said. "The truth did. We just gave it an address." The Ellison Heritage Pavilion was never built. Instead, residents voted to create the Odessa Whitfield Community Center on the same land. It included free tutoring rooms, legal aid offices, an ecology lab, and an emerging fund for families facing illness or job loss. The entrance displayed Odessa's original drawings. Her name appeared exactly where it should have been decades earlier. At the dedication ceremony, Zuri stood beside the magnolia tree she had planted with her grandmother. Its branches were taller now. Sloane handed her a small shovel. "What is this for?" Zuri asked. "A second tree." "Why?" "The first one remembers what we lost." Sloane pointed toward the new community center, where children ran through open doors, and former residents traced beneath Odessa drawings. "This one remembers what we changed." They planted a young oak near the garden path. No cameras surrounded them. No reporters asked questions. For once, the moment belonged only to them. Later, as the sun lowered over Bellhaven Crest, Zuri leaned against her mother. "Did you know everything would work out?" "No. But you weren't scared." "I was terrified." Zuri looked up. "You didn't look terrified." Courage is not a face people are born knowing how to make. It is a choice they keep making while their heart is pounding. Zuri considered that. "Do you think Mrs. Ellison learned anything?" "I hope so." "What if she didn't?" "Then we still learned something." "What?" Sloane looked across the neighborhood. The same gates remained. The same large houses reflected the evening light. Expensive cars still moved along perfectly trimmed streets. But the board meetings were now public. Financial records were available to every resident. No child could be searched by private security without a parent or a police officer present. Hardship applications were reviewed by an independent committee. And no single person held enough private information to turn fear into control. "We learned that dignity does not come from being the richest person in the room," Sloane said. "It comes from knowing no one has the right to make you feel worthless." Zuri smiled. "Even if they have a Bentley?" "Especially then." They laughed together. Sloane had spent years building companies, negotiating billion-dollar deals, and entering rooms where power people expected her to prove she belonged. None of those victories felt as important as watching her daughter walk through Bellhaven Crest without lowering her eyes. Patrice had believed status was the power to decide who mattered. She had confused expensive things with character, obedience with respect, and silence with weakness. In the end, she did not lose because Sloane had more money. She lost because she had built her power. Osman's assumption that vulnerable people would always remain isolated. Wealth helped expose the truth. But the truth had also depended on Ezekiel speaking at the meeting, Noreen preserving the documents, Resin saving their videos, families sharing their record, and a frightened child refusing to accept a lie as her identity. Power had opened the door. Courage had filled the room. And from that day forward, whenever someone new arrived at Bellhaven Crest in an old car, wearing simple clothes or carrying a story no one understood, the neighborhood remembered the woman Patrice Ellison had tried to shame on a marble sidewalk. They remembered the child whose backpack had been emptied before a crowd. And they remembered that the easiest person to underestimate might be the one quietly deciding whether expose everything.